Doctor can
Yeah.
say.
Yes.
Yeah, good. Now, as you can see, the real important here section, I think all this chapter is about really the ideas and the most of the stuff that mentioned and explained and really summarized the whole implications and meanings of Marmeladov and why he was maybe probably thought of as the hero originally of the novel, when the novel was supposed to be given the title The Drunkards. Here really Marmeladov tells us a lot of stuff and we really believe him. You know, the way he speaks, the way he talks and the way he argues, and he knows what he has been doing, he knows he was wrong, he knows he was ugly, and so on and so forth, and still he does it, of course, because he has a real problem with his own addiction. And he goes on here, for example, in these highlighted sections, as you can see, really to read all that will be, I think, will take a lot of time from us, will be even impossible. But the idea, really, I would like you, please, as I told you, to read all of that, because really it tells them how much really Marmeladov is honest with himself, and he knew that he has been doing something terrible and ugly and so on. So that's why in a sense, he was really harsh on himself about what he was doing. Notice here, he calls himself with all those bad names, including being a pig. About it, notice here. He of course mentions about his problems with his own action. Notice, well, so be it, I'm a pig, but she is a lady, I have the semblance of a beast, but Katerina Ivanovna, my spouse, is a person of education and an officer's daughter. Granted, I am a scoundrel, but she is a woman of noble heart, full of sentiments refined by education, and so on. So really, for example, here he's judging his wife, and he said that my wife is really an honorable, absolutely honorable wife. She comes from a good family. She was, of course, she was widowed, and I married her, and she accepted to marry me, and so on. And the way he speaks about her really is very honorable and very nice, and he knows that he, as he said, I'm a scoundrel as I am, as you can see. He's saying I'm a bad guy, but I can't do it because I can't help it because of my problem with the drink, of course. And the way he really describes her, as I said, really in a very positive way. The way she treats him, he said, whatever she does to me, I deserve it. Notice, and yet, although I realize that when she pulls my hair, she only does it out of pity. For I repeat without being ashamed, she pulls my hair, young man, he declared with redoubled dignity, hearing the sniggering again. But my God, if she would but once, but no, it's all in vain, and it's no use talking. No use talking. For more than once, my wish had come true, and more than once, she has left for me. But such is my fate, and I'm a beast by nature. Yeah, I mean, look at this, to say how he's, he's blaming himself. Remember, he's drunk and he's speaking to Raskolnikov and he's telling him, and remember, this is the first time he meets him, but still, as we know, immediately friendship struck between them. And as I said, Marmeladov knows he has this terrible problem with being alcoholic, you know. And you know, he spoke more, he went on and on. Marmeladov struck his fist resolutely on the table. Such is my fate. Do you know, sir? Do you know I have sold her very stockings for drink? Not her shoes. That would be more or less in the order of things. But her stockings I have sold for drink. Her mohair shawl I sold for drink. A present to her long ago, her own property, not mine. And we live in a cold room, and she caught cold this winter, and she has begun coughing and spitting blood too. We have 3 little children, and Katerina Ivanovna is at work from morning till night. She's scrubbing and cleaning and washing the children, for she's been used to cleanliness from a child. But her chest is weak, and she has a tendency to consumption, and I feel it. Do you suppose I don't feel it? And the more I drink, the more I feel it. That's why I drink too. I try to find sympathy and feeling in drink. I drink so that I may suffer twice as much. And as though in despair, he laid his hand down on the table. What a funny argument, isn't it? He drinks to feel, you know, and I think this is a terrible excuse. It's really a horrible excuse, but that's it, you know. Again, he's talking about the question of fate. What fate? You know, is he talking this is my stupid luck? He can't change his fate? No, I don't believe him. That's not his fate. He can do something about it. He can stop. He can stop. Why don't you stop drinking, old man? Huh? Yeah. So, of course, he said, I'm alcoholic, and I do this, and I did this, and I you know, remember he's saying, I am, when he said, I am a beast, because I did all these terrible things to my wife, and I never stopped drinking. You know, and I think he goes on in here, of course, you can see. Young man, he went on raising his hand again, his head again. In your face, I seem to read some trouble of mind. When you came in, I read it. And that was why I addressed you at once. You know, he's speaking to Raskolnikov and saying, maybe you have also a problem, maybe. That's why I spoke to you. What's wrong with you? You know, he goes on about it, notice. Know then that my wife was educated in high-class school for the daughters of noblemen, and on leaving she danced. And on leaving she danced the shawl dance before the governor and other personages, for which she was presented with a gold medal and a certificate of merit. And, you know, he said, I don't condemn her for it. I don't blame her. For the one thing left her is recollection of the past, all, and all the rest is dust and ashes. Yes, yes, she's a lady of spirit, proud and determined. She scrubs the floors herself and does nothing. You know, as I say, really, when you read and read and you read all this, you find absolutely the way he really loves his wife, he respects her, and he knows what he's doing is ugly and terrible and so on. And he's not blaming her in any way. He is not blaming her in any way, never. He feels horrible that he can't do it. And he gives here really a lot of details about her life and about the way she is. And I think we really admire her. We really admire her as you know, an honorable woman. When here he said she married me, for she had nowhere to turn. Do you understand, sir? Do you understand what it means when you have absolutely nowhere to turn? Know that you don't understand yet. And for a whole year, I performed my duties conscientiously and faithfully and did not touch this. Of course, he means, you know, the drink. He tapped the jug with his finger. For our feelings, but even so, I could not please her. And then I lost my place too. And that through no fault of mine, but through changes in the office. And then I did touch it. You know, again and again and again, I think he tries to give, you know, he tries to give really excuses why he's drinking. But of course, we don't accept it. He has some reasons, he has some excuses, social, etc., etc., but that's not really good enough. And here he comes to the idea about his daughter, the way he made his daughter, and he, of course, speaks about her again in really in an amazing way. Notice when he said, Katerina Ivanovna walking up and down and wringing her hands, her cheeks flushed red as they always are in that disease. Here you live with us, she says. You eat and drink and are kept warm, and you do nothing to help. Of course, here he's quoting what Katerina, his wife, told his daughter Sonia to go and do something to give some money to this family. I mean, poor Sonia, what can she do? What can Sonia really do? She's a young lady. She's only 16 or 17 or even 16 years old. What can she do? Of course, that's the only thing she told her, is to go and sell her body. And really, this is the absolute tragic about the whole thing. And she was, and much she gets to eat and drink when there is not a crust for the little ones for 3 days. I was lying at the time. Well, what of it? You see, he's quoting what his wife was speaking to his daughter Sonia, to tell her to go and do something. And he said, I was drunk. I was drunk. I was lying drunk. And I heard my Sonia speaking. What a terrible man. My Sonia? You know, as if he really cares for her. She is a gentle creature with a soft little voice, fair hair, and such a pale and thin little face. She said, Katerina Ivanovna, I'm really to do a thing like that? You know, Sonia was shocked to say, come on, do you want me to go with these bad women and to sell my body? Do you really think so? And Daria Frantsovna, a woman of evil character and very well known to the police, had 2 or 3 times tried to get at her through the landlady. So here we have a character who's operating a circle of, you know, prostitutes. So she's hunting for more, you know, girls and young ladies or something to do this. And, you know, what a horrible woman. And as you can see, her name, Daria Frantsovna, who is, you know, if you like, a terrible woman who's doing this job, you know, hunting other ladies to do this. And, as you can see, he said, a woman of evil character. This is how he describes her. That's the description by Marmeladov, describing the way she is. Again, and why not, said Katerina Ivanovna with a jeer. You are something mighty precious to be so careful of. But don't blame her, honored sir, don't blame her. He comes, he narrates, and then he speaks to Raskolnikov. He's saying, don't blame her. Which one? Well, he really means both. Blame her, his wife, or blame her, the girl, for what maybe they did. Don't blame her. She was not herself when she spoke, but driven to distraction by her illness and the crying of the babies, of the hungry children. And it was said more to wound her than anything else. For that's Katerina Ivanovna's character. And when children cry, even from hunger, she falls to beating them at once. So really he's saying that even my wife is not a bad wife. She really does not want my daughter to go to become a prostitute. She really is not. But she is now here saying it because she's angry and crying because of the kids. The younger ones are crying because of hunger. So she's saying really it in out of absolute anger and spite. Yeah. At 6 o'clock, I saw Sonia get up, put on her kerchief and her cape, and go out of the room. And at about 9 o'clock, she came back. She walked straight up to Katerina Ivanovna, and she laid 30 rubles on the table before her in silence. She did not utter a word. She did not even look at her. She simply picked up our big green draped to dame's shawl. We have a shawl made of draped to dames, but overhead and face, and lay down on the bed with her face to the wall. Only her little shoulders and her body kept shuddering. And I went lying there just as before. And then I saw young man, I saw Katerina Ivanovna in the same silence go up to Sonia's little bed. She was on her knees all the evening kissing Sonia's feet and would not get up. And then they both fell asleep in each other's arms together. Yes, and I lay drunk. Yeah, what a powerful passage here. Yeah. So you can see really here, of course, his own, in this chapter here, really, he gives a lot of details about how ugly he is, how terrible he is to have pushed his daughter to this business of prostitution. And he is ugly about it. He can't, of course, as I said, he's alcoholic, but he should stop. He should stop, and he should do something about it. Marmeladov stopped, short as though his voice had failed him. Then he hurriedly filled his glass, drank, and cleared his throat. He gives more and more really details. As I said, really, I want you to, please read everything, as I said, because it's really such an important, absolutely important, the whole narrative here is absolutely lovely and important to see, what kind of man he is in every sense. And he goes on, he was speaking and speaking and speaking. Here, for example, I will show you, for example, here about you know, another development, the same thing he was, you know, retelling. That was 5 weeks ago, sir. Yes, as soon as Katrina Ivanovna and Sonia heard of it, mercy on us, it was though I stepped into the kingdom of heaven. I used to be, as you can, lie like a beast, nothing but abuse. Now they were walking on tiptoe, hushing the children. Semyon Zaharovich is tired with his work at the office. He is resting. Shh. They made me coffee before I went to work and boiled cream for me. They began to get real cream for me. Do you hear that? And how they managed to get together the money of a decent outfit, 11 rubles, 50 kubeks, I can guess, boots, cotton shirt fronts, most magnificent a uniform. They got up all in splendid style for 11 rubles and a half. The first morning I came back from the office, I found Katrina Ivanovna had cooked 2 courses for dinner, soup and salt meat with horseradish, which we had never dreamed of till then. She had not any dresses, none at all, but she got herself up as though she were going on a visit. And not that she had anything to do with, she smartened herself up with nothing at all. She had done her hair nicely, put on a clean collar of some sort, cuffs, and there she was, quite a different person. She was younger and better looking, and so on. Now, what is he saying here? After a while, he decided to give up drinking, as he said, after 5 weeks. And, you know, he went back to his job, and his wife here, he's saying the way they started to treat him in a really lovely way as an honorable man. As you can see, she calls himself here, he is using his name, full name, Semyon Zaharovich Marmeladov. You know, the way, you know, he's mocking himself, as the way his wife and family started, well, his wife, at least his wife and daughter were happy with him to have come back to his job. But of course, it didn't last. It didn't last. Again, of course, he goes on about it here in really terrible way here. How he speaks here, notice. So he said that I went back again to my terrible habit, and of course this is how he's speaking all this. So notice here, you know, he concludes this, how he, you know, the money that he gets and the way how much they were happy with him. And when we were by ourselves, you understand, you could not think me a beauty. You would not think much of me as a husband, would you? Well, she pinched my cheek. My little puppet, she said. So really, Marmeladov is narrating his story to say how he lived for a little while as a good husband. But of course, he said the whole thing changed. Yeah. This morning, he said, notice, Marmeladov struck his forehead with his fist, clenched his teeth, closed his eyes, and leaned heavily with his elbow on the table. But a minute later, his face suddenly changed with a certain assumed slyness. So as I say, the way he's narrating all this in a very, really amazing fashion. And he said, I went back to drink, and I, you know, this is the time when he saw him here. Notice, this very court was bought with her money, you know, with his daughter. He said, this morning I went to see Sonia. I went to ask her for a pickup, for a pick-me-up. You don't say you gave it to, you didn't say she gave it to you, cried one of the newcomers. He shouted the words and went off into a guffaw. This very court was bought with her money, Marmeladov declared, addressing himself excessively to Raskolnikov. 30 kopecks she gave me with her own hands, her last, all she had, as I saw. She said nothing. She only looked at me without a word. Not on earth, but up yonder. They grieve over men. They weep, but they don't blame them. They don't blame them. I don't know. The way he really says all this, you know, about being forgiven and about heaven and about belief and about all that. And I think here, you know, he explains this in a very strong narrative, absolutely strong narrative, especially when he's saying here, I ought to be crucified. Notice, why am I to be pitied, you say? Yes, there is nothing to pity me for. I ought to be crucified, crucified on a cross, not pity. Crucify me, oh judge, crucify me, but pity me, but pity me. And then I will go to myself to be crucified, for it's not mercy making I seek, but tears and tribulation. Yeah, I mean, this is, the whole speech here is absolutely strong. I think I'll leave it for you to finish this because it's a lovely, absolutely revealing to tell about Marmeladov as being an ugly example of drunkard, and he could not stop it, and you know, all this carry on. And here, of course, you know, he goes on and on about this question of coughing, and the time, you know, he asked him to go back home, and you know, he tells more details about what happened. And here, when he came back, his wife, as you can see, she met him and she gave him really, you know, as what he deserves, really the punishment. Ah, she cried out in a frenzy, he has come back, the criminal, the monster. And where is the money? What is in your pocket? Show me. And your clothes are all different. Where are your clothes? Where is the money? Speak. Remember here, you know, you know, Marmeladov at the end, of course, at the end of their speech in the bar, the pub, Raskolnikov took him back home to his family. And this is here where his wife met him. And of course, he was shocked to see, I mean, the whole thing was really shocking because his wife was very angry because he took all the money and he stole everything and he drank it all in drink. And that's why here she was really very mad with him. And notice here where she said, where is the money? She cried, mercy on us. Can he have drunk it all? There were 12 silver rubles left in my chest. In the chest. And in a fury, she seized him by the hair and dragged him into the room. Marmeladov seconded her efforts by meekly crawling along on his knees. seconded. This is really funny here, if you like. When she dragged him like a little baby in his hair, and he was crawling like a baby, and it's really amazing here. Of course, he deserves it. He's such a terrible man to have done what he has done. Yeah, I mean, we understand when people are well. I mean, the idea really here is saying that he is that he is he has a problem. I mean, he has this disease which is called alcohol. Yeah, I mean, he should try harder to get over it and to come off it. And you can see here how people were there watching and laughing, and everybody knew that he was drunk. And Raskolnikov finally he left. Notice here, of course. Notice here, of course. Afterwards, on the stairs, he changed his mind and would have come back. Meaning Raskolnikov had some money. He put it on the table. He put it in the house here. Notice, Raskolnikov had time to put his hand into his pocket to snatch up the coppers he had received in exchange of his ruble in the tavern, and to lay them unnoticed on the window. Afterwards, on the stairs, he changed his mind and would have gone back. What a stupid thing I have done, he thought to himself. They have Sonia and I wanted myself, but reflecting that it would be impossible to take it back now. You see, the money that he got for his pawn, he had some drink and he gave the rest to Marmeladov's family. And now he said, what have I done here? Why I gave all my money that I went to pawn? Of course, originally, really, that was not his main aim, to pawn. Of course, he was rehearsing. And really here, the idea is amazing to see how he is thinking when he's saying they have Sonia, whereas he, as if to say, I have nobody. Sonia wants pomatum too, he said as he walked along the street. And where is it? And he laughed malignantly. Such smartness costs money. And maybe Sonia herself will be bankrupt today, for there's always a risk hunting big game, digging for gold. Then they would all be without a crust tomorrow, except for my money. Hurrah for Sonia. What a mine they have dug there. Here, for example, you can see that Raskolnikov is reflecting on this in a very, really angry way, to think about their family. I mean, Marmeladov, Sonia, and, all the money that they are getting, which is really terrible. And as he's saying, in a very wicked and horrible way. Even he said, man grows used to everything. The scoundrel. Yeah. Now, remember he said, Marmeladov said the same thing, and now Raskolnikov is using the same to talk to him. He's saying, generally, he's talking about men, about man himself as a man. And, in the next, of course, the chapter, he, as you know, of course, in the story, he woke up late next day after a broken sleep, but his sleep had not reflected him. He waked up, bilious, irritable, ill-tempered, and looked with hatred at his room. It was a tiny cupboard of a room. You know, here again in chapter 3, we see the narrator coming back to tell us about Raskolnikov's life. He went back to his room. He's really very busy, and he was greatly affected by his friend Marmeladov and by Sonia, and by the whole scene really touched him a lot. And he's still, of course, he's still thinking about, of course, committing the crime, of course. So that's why always in his dreams or in his sleep, he always had always like nightmares, and he's always, you know, being worked up and being really always in a very terrible situation. Here we meet more people. Nastasia, you know, this young lady who brings him some food from his landlady, and here she brought him you know, some soup, and she was sort of you know, getting for him some I think a message or messages from his family, from his mother and sister. Notice here the dialogue between him and Nastasia. As I said, Nastasia is the young lady, the cook and only servant, as you can see. She looks after him. She works in the house where he is staying. She works for the landlady, his landlady. And Nastasia really is a nice little girl, a nice maid who takes care of him. She feels sorry for him sometimes, and she gives him food and things like that. And, you know, she sometimes washes his stuff and cleans his room and so on. So really, in a way, he or she came to give him something. And here it's a nice dialogue between them. "Get up! Why are you asleep?" she called to him. "It's past 9. I have brought you some tea. Sorry, will you have a cup? I should think you are fairly starving." Raskolnikov opened his eyes, started, and recognized Nastasia. "From the landlady, eh?" he asked slowly, with a sickly face, sitting up on the sofa. "From the landlady, indeed." She set before him her own cracked teapot full of weak and stale tea, and laid 2 yellow lumps of sugar on the side of it. "Here, Anastasia, take it, please," he said, fumbling in his pocket, for he had slept in his clothes, and taking out a handful of coppers. "Run and buy me a loaf, and get me a little sausage, the cheapest at the pork's butcher's." So you can see Raskolnikov is, you know, behaving most of the time, you know, as really, you know, as a gentleman. And later on, we shall see, of course, we know him a lot in all his behavior, if you like, except, of course, his killing, which is not gentlemanly in any way. The way he behaves and so on, in many ways, sometimes is really strange and very funny, if you like. If you like, here she was telling him about that his landlady is angry with him because he's not paying his rents, of course. Notice here, she said to her, his landlady, Praskovia, Pavlovna, that's her name. Well, you don't need to worry about the name. Pavlovna is his landlady, means to complain to the police about you, she said. He scowled. To the police? What does she want? You don't pay your money, her money, and you won't turn out of the room. That's what she wants, to be sure. The devil, that's the last straw, he muttered, grinding his teeth. No, that would not suit me. Just now, she's a fool, you know. So, in other words, the idea that this maybe will push him to commit the crime, to say that he needs to get the money, to get some money, of course, to pay his rent. But again, this is a terrible excuse, really, to find this. But I mean, this is, of course, one of the ideas. But anyway, Nastasia gave him, she said, okay, I brought you a letter here from your mother, or a letter for you, because he was, remember, half asleep still. Notice. Nastasia, leave me alone, for goodness sake. Here you are, 3 kopecks, but for goodness sake, make haste and go. So she gave him the letter, and he started reading a long, long, long letter. Again, please, it's an amazing long letter. Really lovely, massive letter. Read it all. I can't read it for you here. It's really amazing, amazing narrative, telling him a lot of details to help in the development of the plot. And here his mother saying to him in a letter, and she addresses him. And remember, he's quoting her. My dear Rodia, wrote his mother, it was 2 months since I last had a talk with you by letter, which has distressed me and even kept me awake at night thinking. But I'm sure you will not blame me for my inevitable silence. Now, remember here, really, it's a long story here. It's a long story. I will say it briefly for you. His sister, as you know, she was working like a governess, and the master of the house where she was tried to seduce her and did something terrible to her. And his wife, you know, if you like, did something to help, and the whole story really is maybe sorted out by asking, later on we shall see here, Mr. Svidrigailov, if you like, the man who wanted to, if you like, or originally wanted to seduce her or to play his own terrible tricks with her. And his wife, of course, did not allow him. So to cut the story short, I mean, you can see it here. It's the whole thing. It's the whole thing. She said it. His mother is saying it in details here, in everything. Please read it all. But anyway, Donya was saved through the ways in which she accepted to marry somebody who helped to quiet the whole situation. Of course, for Dunya and her mother, it was maybe a good way to earn some money or to get some money and to save her name, because her name, if you like, was blotted or was given a bad name because people started talking that she was being maybe had a funny affair with a man, you know, who is a married man, and his wife was crazy about it, and so on, you know. So really the idea here, as you can see, is explained in carefully. As I said, please read all of this. And the whole story is Donya is going to marry Luzhin, who is the relative of Marfa Petrovna, who is the wife of Svedrigailov, as you can see here, as you can see at the bottom of the page here. Notice they were given money and so on and so forth, and you know, she's telling him all these details about it, and he was really, of course, shocked to know all this story about his sister, how his sister Dunya is doing this, and he was really, really upset. Notice Svedrigailov treated her very rudely and used to make disrespectful and jeering remarks at table. But I don't want to go into all these painful details so as not to worry you for nothing when it's now all over. In short, in spite of the kind and generous behavior of Marfa Petrovna, Mr. Svedrigailov's wife, and all the rest of the household, Dunya had a very hard time, especially when Mr. Svedrigailov, relapsing into his old regimental habits, was under the influence of Bacchus. And here really his mother is, you know, explaining a lot of this. And the way she says, finally Dunya was given a chance, especially by Marfa, by the wife here, Marfa Petrovna, who really decided to, because she's angry, because she is really angry with her husband, who is playing around with this young, innocent girl, Dunya. So in order to save Dunya's name, they found for her, if you like, an alternative man or someone to marry her, you know? So really, the whole thing is amazing. It's a terrible, amazing story, as you can see here. Dunya should be backed off, as you can see here, and maybe I'll read one or two sentences. And it heavily shower of rain came on too, and Dunya, insulted and put to shame, had to drive with a peasant in an open cart all the 17th versts into town. Only think now, what answer could I have sent to the letter I received from you 2 months ago? And what could I have written? I was in despair. I dread not to write to you. You know, yeah, please read. It's a long, long letter, really a very long letter. The conclusion decided to find this man, and he is Login here, Pyotr Petrovich Login. Notice, this was how it happened. He is already in the rank of a counselor. Now she's telling him how they found for her the man. His name, he is a counselor, Pyotr Petrovich Login, and is a distantly related to Marfa Petrovna, who has been very active in bringing the match together or about. You see, you know, Marfa Petrovna wanted to make this match because she wants to save her marriage, because her man was the ugly one who wanted to play around with Dunya, and Dunya, in a, for example, in an innocent way. She did not let him, by the way. But because he was the master, he gave her a bad name because of his wife, because his wife spread the story and she was very angry and so on. So that's why here she's saying, now your sister is now getting married to this man, Login, Pyotr Petrovich Login. Notice she goes on. It began with his experiencing through her his desire to make our acquaintance. He was properly received, drank coffee with us, and the very next day he sent us a letter in which he very courteously made an offer and begged for a speedy and decided answer. So of course, through the pushing of Marfa Petrovna, who wanted to, get rid of Dunya, of course, to marry him to her. So the story is very long. As you know, they finally decided that they will marry each other. And now his mother is telling him the whole thing. And now, originally she said Dunya did not want to, but then they accepted because they were thinking of him, of Raskolnikov. They did it for him. Notice, Dunya did not sleep all night before she made up her mind. And thinking that I was asleep, she got out of bed and was walking up and down the room all night. At last, she knelt down before the icon and prayed long and fervently. And in the morning, she told me that she had decided. Decided what? To marry Pyotr Petrovich Ugly Login, because later on we will see that he is an ugly, terrible man. And of course, as we said, Dunya accepted to marry him to save her name and to save her brother, really to help and save her brother. And they told him this here, It's a long story, as I said, it's a very long letter. Please read it all. And here it's finished, as you can see, with his absolute, shock. And he was absolutely devastated. In chapter 4, he reacts on this. He was very angry about it. And he said, no way, no way. Notice what he said here. Of course, you can see how he reacted. And he was telling us in a lot of details about his reaction. Of course, he was really very mad about it. Notice, no mother, no Dunya, you won't deceive me. And then they apologize for not asking my advice and for taking the decision without me. I dare say they imagine it is arranged now and can't be broken off, but we will see whether it can or cannot. Meaning, of course, he said, I will never let this go. He will stop it. No, Dunya, I see it all, and I know what you want to say to me, and I know too what you were thinking about when you walked up and down now all night, and what your prayers were like before the Holy Mother of Kazan, who stands in mother's bedroom. Bitter is the ascent of Golgotha. And of course, he's referring to all this mythological, biblical references. And, saying, I will never allow this. And notice here, of course, he played with one, I think, as I will show you later on, the same word is used by Shakespeare in Hamlet. Notice, there's much solid and impressive a man who holds 2 government posts and who shares the ideas of our most rising generations, as Mother writes, and who seems to be kind. As Dunya herself observes, that seems beat everything. And that very Dunya, for that very seems, is marrying him. Splendid, splendid. Yeah, notice he repeats the word seems three times here, really, as you can see here. This is absolutely the same word used by Hamlet, the same word, seems. He said, I don't know seems. My language is, always is, not seems. So he's laughing and mocking and criticizing, of course, his or their decision to marry Dunya to this man, because again, notice he said, he seems to be kind. He's mocking the way they believe that Pyotr Petrovich Login, they think that Login is a kind man, they think, and that's why he seems, which means they don't believe he is. They don't believe he is. And he's saying this is the important thing about it, that they think that he is, but he's not. So that's why he's using this and mocking the idea about seems and seems, he's repeating many times. And again, he said the same thing about words and words. And I think, I think this is again Shakespeare's language. Shakespeare here again, the same thing about words, 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 nothing but words. And he said it here, it's the same. So sometimes when I mention Shakespeare and Hamlet here, many times I think the writer, I don't know really for sure that whether Dostoevsky, he must have read Shakespeare, definitely. He must have read Shakespeare. So here he's using the word seems many times. I think this is, and the word here, words, no deeds, words, no deeds. And I think this is what, he's saying, because this is exactly what Hamlet was saying to himself. I was useless, he said. I'm like an old woman's talk and gossip. I don't do anything. I only chatter and chatter and chatter, And I think this is, again, very Shakespearean in this way. I think, if you like, I think here, let me see. There are many, incidents and passages when she said, when of course Raskolnikov is emphasizing all this, and here when his mother is saying to him, and he's quoting what his mother is saying to him again about, please, son, love your sister. Love your sister. You should care for your sister because she's doing it for you. Notice when she said, and why does she write to me, love Donya Rodia, and she loves you more than herself? Has she a secret conscience prick at sacrificing her daughter to her son? Huh? Yeah, notice a secret conscience prick at sacrificing. Yeah, anybody can translate this to Arabic to me. A secret conscience prick at sacrificing her daughter to her son. Hello? Hello, my people, where are you?
Yes, doctor, I lost. Where are you reading? No, I see. Is it page 25?
Yeah.
Okay.
Has she a secret conscience prick at sacrificing her daughter to her son? Yeah. How do you translate this? Anybody here who is good in translation? Harase. Sarah? Shaima?
Yes, doctor. Maybe
Yeah.
can translate it as خدشت ضميرها.
خدشت ضميرها?
Maybe.
In what sense?
I don't know, because he said consciousness break. I don't know what does he mean by break exactly. We don't say this in Arabic.
Yeah, we say this actually. Has she? Yeah.
خزفي.
Sorry.
I say it right. How can this be translated?
Yeah.
Doctor,
Yeah.
is it تأنيب الضمير?
Yeah. Exactly. So, but he's saying it here in in a graphic way, as if there is a prick or like a phone, pricking her. As we say, al-wakhz. هل هناك من ايش؟ Notice, a secret conscience prick. يعني هل يوجد في لا وعي في ضميره في لبه شيء يوخزها, isn't it? يوخزها means to really feel very guilty. Why? في شيء عم يوجعها, عم يوخزها في داخلها في قلبها, لأنها تضحي ابنتها من أجل ابنها. تضحي بابنتها لأجل ابنها. Sacrificing her daughter to her son. لذلك ضميرها عم يوجعها, عم يوخزها, عم يلومها. Why? That's prick, وخز, الوخز. يعني as if you are being really hit by a knife or by a needle. A secret conscience. Conscience هون يعني الضمير. نقول الضمير عم يعذبه. Right? And this is عذاب الضمير, really. When you feel you are guilty. She has a secret conscience prick. Means she feels really, really badly, terribly guilty for allowing her daughter to sacrifice her body, her life, and marry a man she does not love. Why? For the sake of her brother. That's here. And he's saying the mother allowing her daughter to do this for the sake of her son. And that's why he's saying, you are our one comfort. You are everything to us, oh mother. He's quoting his mother, was saying, أنت كل ما عنا, أنت سعادتنا يا ولدي. And he's saying, oh mother, come on mother. Why? Why are you doing this to me? Why are you doing this to your own daughter? For me? No, 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 no. No, 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 no. Of course, he quotes here and there all this again really in a very amazing fashion, and he describes Longin in an ugly way as being a stingy man. Notice here stinginess, and he's being a terrible, horrible businessman who is absolutely only a businessman who has no feelings, no honor, nothing. And that's why he was very angry. He said, my sister is doing worse than what Sonia is doing. And he comes back again. He said, Dunya, why? He goes on and on and on about it. And I think he said it here, I think in many ways. Notice Dunya, notice she understands the man, of course, but she will have to live with the man. Why? She will live on black bread and water. She would not sell her soul. She would not barter her moral freedom for comfort. She would not barter it for all Schleswig-Holstein or Lugins, etc., etc. You know, he's giving, you know, other figures as if to say, for nobody, she will not do that. She is doing it for me. I will not accept it. For Lugins' money? Why? No, Dunya was not that sort when I knew her. And she is still the same, of course. Yes, there's no denying the Svedregelov are a bitter pill. It is bitter thing to spend one's life a governess in the provinces for 200 rubles. But I know she would rather be a nigger on a plantation or a let with a German master than degrade her soul and her moral dignity by binding herself forever to a man whom she does not respect and with whom she has nothing in common for her own advantage. Yeah, I think this is really strong to say. He knows his sister would not do it for herself, you know. And I think Raskolnikov here goes on and on in a lovely way. Please read all this because it's a lovely, absolutely lovely impact to see how he comes back to this idea and how he really decided that he's going to do whatever he can to stop this marriage. Of course, later on we shall see this here because it's a long chapter, as you know, and I think I will stop here. I think when I will continue from there to give you more details about how he concludes this at the end of this chapter, chapter 4. Okay. Well, next time, as I said, I think I will be even more. I will try to move quicker.